Okay, so the last thing is the dark details. Now for this one, I'm really going to need to make sure I get the pigments really goopy. Okay, and so let me get some water. This is just water. I'm putting in the black. My painting has been all in black with that one, and so this has got to be the darkest, deepest, darkest black part. And so if you just put water in like this, nothing really happens. You got to kind of mix it around. You got to kind of let it stay in there for a while so it can become super, super dark. Because remember, it's a ratio of water to pigment. And so we need this last coat to have lots of pigment in the water when we go and we try to make that. And so I'm just going to let that. I mixed it up pretty good, and so if I put in the top tray, that's pretty dark, and so that's what we're really, really after. Let me find my my reference photo. Got my reference photo on that. Let's start in some places that are kind of out of the way. Remember we talked about that. If we do some places that are kind of out of the way, sometimes it's easier. If we make a mistake, we blow it, it's not going to matter as much. And so, like right over here in the corner, down here, this is my darkest dark. So when I put this in, I got to make sure I get the point of the brush going this way. We're putting some stuff on top of the other paint, and so this is the darkest dark value that we're adding in there. So we can see that it goes from light to medium to dark. And like I said back here, over in this area, we can put some of these things in. And if I make a mistake, if it's too light, it's no big deal. We can just darken it up. If we go straight for the face on that's going to be kind of difficult. It's not going to work out as well for us. Now maybe up here, there's also some areas where values go to the absolute dark value with those. Maybe a little bit here and there. They don't show it as much on the initial drawing, but we can do it. Now down here we have a series of darkest darks as well. Remember that all of these lines, you notice that they kind of have a linear component to them. I want them pointing towards the nose, and so as we put this down here, these little spots of little islands. Remember we were building an island. These are the trees on top of the island that we're doing. But it's very, very thick. It's very dark. It's not very transparent. And that is the last part that we do in watercolor painting, is usually the dark details. If you're doing oils or acrylics or something like that, it's actually you put the light details on last. Watercolors is exactly the opposite. You're building from light and going towards the dark. In oils, it's opposite. You put on your darker stuff first, and the last thing you put on is your details with your little highlights on them. So there's these little black things in this area. Some of them are connected. There can be separation between them. They can be connected, but there are just some of these little black dabs in here. And so we have some down here too. Now there's also some up in this area. Let's go ahead and just as a matter of course, I almost always dip my brush into the water to start out. And try not to make these lines as you put these pieces in here. Don't go all the way up to the edge of the other thing so it's not exactly on top. You need a little bit of space, a little bit of room. In fact, if I go this way and I do all these ones with the brush pointing kind of in that direction, and then I can come back here, have the brush pointing in the other direction, it'll make for some nice fills. you guys wanted to explore your non-dominant hand, that's a good way to do it. Okay, so that area there, not too intimidating, pretty easy to fill in. All of a sudden, as you step back, say, oh, wow, look, it's starting to look somewhat three-dimensional, which is what we're after in the first place with this painting. And now we can go into things maybe that are a little bit more in the limelight, as it were, I guess. I'm going to go ahead and go in here. So a lot of this I'm going to be covering up quite a bit of this one because it's fairly dark in here, but you'll notice like on the outside here, there's just a little bit of the light value around the nose, then there's a medium value. And so I want to make sure I leave some of that medium value. So as I come in here, like I said, the nose is really pretty dark. There has kind of the hole in your head where the air comes in right in here. And it's still broken. And so we can have this kind of come down here. Notice that I don't go all the way completely overlapping the value that's underneath it. I can go pretty close out towards the fills there and then come back in here with that. So dark values last in watercolors. This part looks like it comes down here, right? There's a little bit of a gap. I'm rotating my brush as we're coming down, right? Because we need the fur kind of radiating from the nose area. And it looks like there's kind of a spot that kind of comes down here, right in the middle. That has kind of that going. This has to come down a little bit more at an angle, huh? Actually, I want that. That could have been a little bit more. Let's get the other nostril in there, huh? Take and point this out towards the side as well. And this is kind of broken up in here. It looks like it's a little bit heavier on this right side. By broken, it's almost like there's little dabs of paint in there. Little dashes or blobs. I'm just trying to facilitate the idea that the brush is radiating out from the nose this way, and so those little marks need to be pointing outward as well. That's pretty good. And then down here, almost like he has a little bit of a mustache. or she has a mustache. Not sure gender on this wolf. I'll let you guys decide. Let's angle this back this way. And maybe fill in this just a little bit more. And this portion here, this has kind of a jaggedy edge here, so I'm just using the tip of the brush to put a series of little dashes. They're kind of pointing upward. And then I can fill in more of this lower part here. So it's just a little domed, mountainy sort of thing in there. Then down here, similar, except I want the point of the brush definitely going this way. Now you can turn your paper. I'm just kind of doing this because this is the way the camera is kind of pointed, and so you can kind of see what we're doing with the point of the brush, creating the little fingertips or the hair, clumps of hair with the mouth as it comes over here. And I'm just filling in. But feel free to rotate your paper so you're not craning your arm in all sorts of weird directions. Kind of like that. Now down over here we have the outside is kind of a little bit straighter, and the inside portion is showing the fur a little bit more. Kind of like that. That's kind of cool. Up over here we have a little bit more as well. So that gives the little bit of his jowls. Is that what we call that part? Here's some more over here too. Kind of like that. How's that looking? Now you notice he's starting to really look pretty good on that three-dimensional stuff, huh? Oh, the part we've all been dreading, it's the eyes. Okay, so within here, the pupil itself is fairly dark. If you wanted to put a little bit of a spot where there's a reflected light in there, you can, but the pupil is mostly dark. And then the parts to the outside is also mostly dark. And so this can be just kind of more of a smooth line on the inside like that. This one on this side has just a little bit of a spot there. That's the medium gray. I don't like that one. Then this pupil over here, this is the hole in your head where the light comes in. And I am going to leave just a little bit of a reflected light, I think, in there. And so a little bit of a white spot in the pupil somewhere. Okay, let's go ahead and put this. The cool part about this is I'm covering up almost all of that medium gray area. And then the brush, the tip of the brush can kind of point out towards the bottom. I still do want to leave a little bit of that gray, that medium gray. Let's see if we can go ahead and put this in here, because this is all dark in this spot. That's looking pretty good. All this is dark, and then I need to have the brush kind of pointing in this direction so I can get the tip of the brush to recreate some of that. And I'm going to put some little dashes in here too. And some on this one so that brings the line down a little bit. You can have a mixture of your lights, your mediums, and your darks. Kind of like that. This one I think I actually want to bring back. I'm going to make it a little darker in through here. There we go. That looks a little more even, huh? Okay. And so that's your final application that makes all of a sudden your kind of transforms your wolf. Let me show you a transformation. Remember, we were sitting here like this, and it was looking kind of 3D, but then once you add your dark details on, it's like, oh, holy smokes, that just really brings everything out. But you have to wait kind of till the end to get those on there, because you can't go back in and add these lighter colors, these lighter values right next to these dark ones, because those dark it'll bleed into it. We need to make sure that we're overlapping and building up on those when we make that going from light to dark. And that's kind of it. That's creating the wolf.